2003, two Australian artists walked into a laboratory and did something that had never been done before in the name of art. They grew a human ear on the back of a living mouse. The images shocked the world. A tiny, perfectly formed ear protruding from a laboratory rodent, created not for medical research, but as an artistic statement about biotechnology, identity, and what it means to be human. I'm Oleg G from Art Explained, Simply and Quickly. And today we're diving into the most controversial art movement of the 21st century, bioart, where artists don't just paint or sculpt, they literally create life itself. This isn't science fiction or medical research gone wrong. This is the cutting edge of contemporary art, where galleries now house living organisms, where artworks can reproduce, evolve, and die, and where the line between artist and scientist has completely disappeared. But when art starts playing with life itself, we're forced to confront uncomfortable questions about ethics, animal rights, and whether there are some boundaries that art should never cross. The artists behind this shocking work are Oron cats and Ionat Zurr, founders of Symbiotic A, the world's first research laboratory dedicated to artistic exploration of biotechnology. Based at the University of Western Australia, they've spent decades pushing the boundaries of what art can be by literally growing their artworks from living tissue in laboratory conditions. But before we dive deeper into their most controversial works, I'm curious about your initial reaction. Does growing living tissue for art purposes cross an ethical line? Or is this the natural evolution of artistic expression? Leave a comment below and let's start this important conversation. The Ear on Mouse project, formerly titled Extra Ear 1/4 scale, represents just one piece in Katz and Zurr's larger exploration of what they call tissue culture and art. Using techniques borrowed directly from medical research, they grow human and animal cells in laboratory conditions, creating what they describe as semi-living artworks that exist somewhere between life and death, natural and artificial. The process itself is both scientifically sophisticated and artistically radical. Starting with a small sample of human cartilage cells, they grow these cells on a biodegradable scaffold shaped like a human ear. This scaffold is then surgically implanted under the skin of an immunosuppressed laboratory mouse, where the mouse's own blood supply feeds the growing human tissue. Over several weeks, the human ear grows and develops, literally becoming part of the living mouse while remaining genetically human. The resulting artwork challenges every assumption we have about artistic materials. Traditional sculptors work with clay, marble, or bronze, materials that are definitively dead. Katz and Zurr work with materials that are definitively alive, that require feeding, care, and medical attention to survive. Their artworks don't just exist in galleries, they exist in incubators, requiring the same life support systems as premature babies. The ethical implications of this work have sparked fierce debates across multiple fields. Animal rights activists argue that using laboratory animals as living canvases for artistic expression represents an unjustifiable exploitation of sentient creatures for non-essential purposes. Unlike medical research, which aims to develop treatments for human diseases, bioart serves primarily aesthetic and conceptual goals that many argue don't justify the use of animal subjects. But Katz and Zurr counter that their work actually exposes the hidden ethical complexities already present in biotechnology and medical research. By bringing these processes into art galleries and public spaces, they force viewers to confront the reality of how modern medicine depends on animal testing and genetic manipulation. Their art becomes a form of ethical revelation rather than exploitation. If you're finding this video helpful, please hit like to help the YouTube algorithm push my videos to other art lovers. Want to support further? Check out my affordable membership options with exclusive perks, or simply use it to say thanks. YouTube monetization isn't generous, and your support helps me create content like this every week. Every bit of support helps. The scientific accuracy of their work is crucial to its artistic impact. Unlike science fiction films or fantasy art that might imagine biological possibilities, Katz and Zurr's tissue culture artworks represent actual scientific achievements. The ear growing on the mouse isn't a special effect or artistic metaphor. It's a functioning piece of human tissue sustained by a living animal's biological systems. This scientific legitimacy has led to collaborations with major research institutions and medical researchers. Their work at Symbiotic A operates within the same regulatory frameworks that govern medical research, including ethics committees, animal welfare protocols, and scientific peer review. They're not mad scientists working in isolation, but artists embedded within the institutional structures of contemporary biotechnology. The gallery presentation of these living artworks creates unprecedented challenges for museums and exhibition spaces. How do you display an artwork that requires veterinary care? What happens when the artwork dies during the exhibition? Katz and Zurr's installations often include the laboratory equipment necessary to sustain their living pieces: incubators, monitoring devices, feeding systems that transform galleries into functioning biological laboratories. The Semi-Living Worry Dolls project demonstrates another dimension of their practice. These small sculptures made from pig bone cells and biodegradable polymers are designed to eventually die during exhibition. Visitors can interact with the dolls, but each touch contributes to their eventual demise. The artwork becomes a meditation on mortality, care, and the responsibility we bear when we interact with living systems. Now, I want to hear from you about the bigger picture. If artists can grow human tissue on animals for art, where should we draw the line? What other biotechnology applications in art would you find acceptable or unacceptable? Share your thoughts in the comments. The influence of Katz and Zurr's work extends far beyond the art world into discussions about biotechnology policy and public understanding of scientific research. Their exhibitions have introduced general audiences to tissue engineering concepts that might otherwise remain confined to academic journals and research laboratories. They've democratized access to complex scientific ideas while raising critical questions about how these technologies should be regulated and applied. The commercial biotechnology industry has taken notice of their work, both as potential collaborators and critics. Some biotech companies have funded artist residencies and exhibitions, seeing bioart as a way to engage public interest in their research. Others have expressed concern that artistic applications might trivialize serious medical research or create public relations problems for legitimate therapeutic applications. The preservation and documentation challenges posed by bioart represent entirely new problems for art historians and museum curators. How do you preserve an artwork that's literally alive? Traditional conservation methods, controlling temperature, humidity, and light exposure, become life or death decisions for bioartworks. Some pieces can only be preserved through documentation and recreation, raising questions about authenticity and originality that don't exist for traditional art forms. The legal status of bioartworks remains murky in many jurisdictions. Who owns the intellectual property rights to genetically modified organisms created for artistic purposes? What happens when living artworks reproduce without the artist's permission? These questions become even more complex when the artworks incorporate human genetic material, as in the Oron mouse project. Religious and cultural perspectives on bioart vary dramatically across different communities. Some religious traditions view the manipulation of living tissue as interfering with divine creation, while others see it as an expression of human creativity made in God's image. Indigenous communities have raised particular concerns about the use of their genetic material in artistic projects, leading to discussions about consent and cultural appropriation in biotechnology. The educational impact of bioart has been substantial in both art schools and science programs. Students exposed to tissue culture art often develop deeper understanding of both artistic practice and scientific method. The interdisciplinary nature of the field requires artists to become competent in laboratory techniques, while demanding scientists consider the cultural and ethical implications of their research. The COVID-19 pandemic has given new relevance to bioart's exploration of biological systems and human health. Katz and Zurr's work on viral spread and biological contamination, created years before the pandemic, now seems prophetic in its attention to how biological agents move between bodies and across boundaries. The economic model for bioart remains challenging, as the cost of maintaining living artworks far exceed traditional art materials. Galleries must invest in specialized equipment and trained personnel to exhibit bioartworks, limiting their accessibility. The inability to create permanent collections of living artworks also disrupts traditional art market dynamics. Contemporary artists influenced by Katz and Zurr's pioneering work continue pushing the boundaries of bioart in new directions. Some focus on environmental applications, using genetically modified organisms to address pollution or climate change. Others explore identity and body modification through biotechnological interventions. The field continues evolving as new biotechnologies become available to artists. The regulatory environment for bioart varies significantly between countries, with some nations embracing artistic applications of biotechnology while others maintain strict restrictions. These regulatory differences affect where bioart can be created and exhibited, potentially limiting global dialogue about these important issues. If you're intrigued by art that challenges our fundamental assumptions about life, creativity, and ethical responsibility, hit that subscribe button right now and join our community of art explorers. Every week on Art Explained Simply and Quickly, we examine works that push boundaries and force us to reconsider what art can be and do. What's your position on using living animals as artistic materials? Do the potential educational and consciousness-raising benefits justify the ethical concerns? Or are some boundaries too important to cross in the name of art? Your perspective on these crucial questions helps shape ongoing discussions about the future of biotechnology and artistic expression. If this video helped you understand the complex ethical landscape of bioart and its implications for both science and culture, give it a thumbs up. It helps more people discover these important conversations about art, technology, and moral responsibility. See you in the next exploration.